Bonjour à vous toutes et à vous tous.
Good morning, one and all.
Madame la représentante du ministre de l'Europe et des Affaires étrangères, Monsieur le
representative of the Ministry of Foreign and European Affairs of France, the representative of the Ministry of Health and Solidarity, the delegate for the French National Commission of UNESCO, ladies and gentlemen of all areas, politics, academia, medicine, all of you, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to wish you a warm welcome and say that we are very pleased to welcome you here for this forum on reverse innovation. It's been organized by the Fondation for the Academy of Medicine. The French National Academy of Medicine set up our foundation a few years ago. It was recognized as an official NGO in 2013, and the idea was to work internationally. We have three objectives. First, we wanted to have a greater spreading of top elite medical achievements, and we wanted to have close and ongoing collaboration between medicine in France and medicine around the world. And we also wanted to raise awareness insofar as we can. We wanted to get general public aware of the great issues at stake in public health care. Now, to fulfill those objectives, we have been organizing bilateral forums over recent years. We have Yves Juillet, the Secretary General, who will be talking about this later. And we had these bilateral meetings on public health and training, and we held those in Brazil, China, India, Russia, Mexico, and Senegal. And I would like to extend a warm welcome to the delegations from those countries who are here with us today. Thank you very much for being here. Now, in the course of these forums, we've dealt with a number of subjects and issues, and I'd like to stress the fact that we've often talked about subjects such as obesity, aging, the negative effects of pollution, and of course this is for a mainstream public, which is what our foundation is aiming at. And then, with time, our strategy became more targeted and stronger, and in addition to the three objectives which I've just mentioned, which we will be pursuing, and we do that on a daily basis, of course, we wanted to have a greater objective. We wanted to have a purpose. And insofar as we could, we wanted to work to have the greatest number of people around the world having access to medicine. This, of course, is a great ambition, but this is what guides our work on a daily basis. And so we wanted to have techniques and practices discovered and used so that people could have better access to the best health care. And when I say access, I mean that it should be financially affordable at the lowest price possible, and it also means physical access and also digital access. And we have decided to organize this forum, which is no longer a bilateral forum. It is now a multilateral forum, and it is devoted to what we call reverse innovation. As you know, this is the term which is now recognized. It's recognized around the business world and in other fields, and it means innovations which were initially developed by or for the new economies and sometimes emerging economies, and which were then able to be spread to developed economies. They went from developing to developed economies. And of course, you know why we want to do that. You know it better than I do. All countries are confronted with the same problems, have the same issues at stake. And of course, you have middle class that want to have quality health care. We've had a huge explosion of public health expenditure per head of population, and we've seen extended life expectancy. So when it comes to funding policies and healthcare policies, a number of countries are in a difficult situation, in a bind, so we need innovation. And reverse innovation is of interest to us for two reasons. First, the initial idea was to have the lowest price possible. This is what we looked at with innovation, and this means that we can have innovations which can be adopted in our countries for healthcare treatment, which can be more affordable. That's quite obvious. That obviously we want that. And the second thing that I would like to stress is that contrary to what we may sometimes think, reverse innovation does not necessarily mean cheaper or poorer quality innovation. I was discussing this with Professor de Maria, who is, how can I put it? The All Indian Institute for Medical Science, AIMS. And he was telling me last night that he'd like to stress that affordability does not mean compromise. We don't want to compromise, and we must understand that, and I'd like to say a bit more about that. When we look at reverse innovation and the question of cost, this can mean it's a source of progress because scientists working in the new economies and in emerging economies often have to contend with a lack of infrastructure or resources, and so they have to invent. Necessity is the mother of invention, and so necessity means that they have to find breakthrough solutions. And they're less satisfied with the way things are done, the way people think, which can be too rigid, and they just go on to past things. And when we see what's happened in the South, we've got ideas coming from the South to inspire the North, and in the future we will see things changing through these new economies. And you can look at questions like nutrition, prevention, fair and secure access to pharmaceuticals, the different academies of medicine. We can have a better screening of infectious diseases. So for us today and in the future, what we need to do is look at things in perspective and see all these innovations coming from these different countries and see which ones could be adopted by Western economies. And of course, we're particularly interested in our own countries, and we're going to be talking about this in the course of these 2 days. And this is obviously to have more people having better access to better medicine. We want to look at adaptability, transposability of things. And if you look at the program, we have 3 panels, and we're going to look at the obstacles which need to be overcome. Some of them are cultural, others are regulations or organizational obstacles, and these have to be overcome to see which measures can be adopted, which of these new practices can be adopted. I'd like to add 2 other points, and the first is that we have invited 12 startups, and they will be introducing themselves, and you'll find there's a startup corner where they present what they're doing, and they work in their specific domains. You'll see what they're doing for access to healthcare, and we're looking at this in the other direction, going from France to the rest of the world. And the other thing I would like to mention is that last night we had representatives come together at the Academy of Medicine, representatives of all the countries here today, and we decided that we would set up a committee of partners. But this is not an honorary committee. We want this to be an operational body, and it will work. They will meet on a regular basis, and the working program will be done between the sessions so that we can have better exchanges between our countries. So I see the role of our foundation as a way of bringing us all together, and France can be a catalyst for all these different countries. That's what we would like to do. So that's what I wanted to say to conclude. And perhaps I can make a statement of the obvious, but we need to stress this. If we want the 7 billion people in the world today having best healthcare and best health management, we obviously have to meet 2 prerequisites. And the first is that the flow of scientific and medical discoveries have to keep speeding up from one day to the next, and that's essential, quite obviously. But we also need to improve or revolutionize access so that more people, many more people, can have access, either logistic access or financial access to the best healthcare. And this is the principal point which we're going to be discussing over the next 2 days. So you've understood that there is access. That's the way our foundation works on an everyday basis, and this is the subject that we're going to be discussing here at this forum. I'd like to say a few quick thank yous. I'd like to thank all the people, so many people who have been involved in organizing this. They've spent months organizing this forum. I would also like to thank the speakers who come from different parts of the world and who are going to share their expertise and experience. I would like to thank our sponsors. Obviously, we couldn't have done this without the support of the sponsors. And I would like to thank UNESCO, because UNESCO has kindly hosted us here at UNESCO headquarters. And I would particularly like to thank our partners from the new economies, from the countries I mentioned, who are with us today in this auditorium. Thank you very much for being here. So I would like to wish you a very successful forum, and I suggest that you have as many exchanges, discussions, and conversations as possible with as many participants as possible, and preferably from countries other than your own. Thank you.